Hola gente del grupo Grite, estamos acá en otro encuentro junto con Emiliano y hoy tenemos como invitado a Owl Goingback, uno de los mejores escritores de terror en Estados Unidos. Sus novelas tienen una particularidad que me fascinan, básicamente porque son ágiles, entretenidas y trabaja con un tema que pocos escritores últimamente trabajan, que es un monstruo grande y malvado, algo que lamentablemente se está perdiendo un poco. Tenemos la suerte de que Owl está con su esposa, Nancy, que va a oficiar de nuestra traductora. Thank you very much, Nancy, and welcome, Owl Going Back.
Bueno,
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
muchas gracias por
He knows.
tener de
Gracias a
Owl Goingback.
ustedes.
You don't
Emiliano.
appreciate everything.
Bueno, nos gustaría comenzar hoy, nos gustaría comenzar preguntando ¿qué significado simbólico tiene tu nombre en relación a tu labor como escritor?
My name is a given name. It's I was named after an ancestor. It's like everybody else's name. I just as Native American, we have unusual names compared to other people in America. As a writer, it doesn't really have any relationship because I had the name before I was a writer. So I just, it looks good on book covers, though. It looks very good on book covers. Unfortunately, sometimes they see the name and they think that's the title of the book. I've had more people ask me, "Oh, what is the book Owl Goingback about?" And I have to tell them, "No, that's not the title of the book. That's actually my name."
Yes.
Yeah.
How do you begin your career as a horror writer?
Oh, that's easy. My wife called me stupid.
Why?
We were sitting. I owned a restaurant in Georgia, and we were watching an interview on television about Stephen King. And during the interview, she said, "Why can't you be smart like him instead of so stupid?" And it kind of, being the macho male, I had to prove her wrong. So the very next day, I started writing, and I wrote. You write about what you know, so I wrote an article for a martial arts magazine, and I sent it off, and they bought it. And I said, well, this might be just beginner's luck. I said, I will write one more. If I sell the second article, I'll keep writing. If I don't sell it, I will stop. Well, I sold the second article and I started doing martial arts articles. I kept writing and then switched to fiction. 10 years, almost to the day of watching that interview, I was up against Stephen King for the Bram Stoker Award. So I proved that I wasn't stupid, although my wife still calls me that.
It's a good anecdote. In your first novel, Crota, you use the expression many times, the expression mother nature. Phrase that is now debated in academia, as is essentialized nature as feminine. What's your opinion? Do you think this mother nature or speak about mother nature is a form of essentialism?
Well, in the native culture, Mother Nature has always been considered Mother Earth. I mean, it's part of Mother Earth, and that's always been feminine. So when I say Mother Nature, I'm combining everything that's involved with Mother Earth. God always came across as being masculine, whereas the earth and everything in the earth and all living creatures always fell upon Mother Nature and Mother Earth. So yeah, I to this day, I still consider it to be feminine. If I'm praying with the pipe, I always address it as Mother Earth, or and Mother Nature is part of that. So everything I see outside belongs to Mother Earth. So I always consider it feminine.
Okay. Emiliano?
Yes. Owl, you worked as a cemetery caretaker. That's true?
Mm-hmm.
Is it possible? Is it possible to make any sort of connection between that job and your writing, your style of writing?
Well, I got the job as cemetery caretaker because the sexton was familiar with my writing. And he said, how would you like to do this job? And you could bury people and be in a spooky location because the cemetery is very old. It's supposed to be haunted. Now, I did draw from that cemetery in my writing when I did Coyote Rage. The part of the story is set in that cemetery. It starts out in the cemetery. And so I have the one of the workers as one of the main characters is the cemetery caretaker, and his wife is a funeral director. So yeah, it was a learning experience for me. I buried a lot of people, but I got to dig up a few too.
And do you feel, or did you feel a sort of feedback between both?
Yeah, I did. I had to use a lot of material came from the cemetery. I mean, people don't realize the daily operations of the cemetery, the history, and when you're burying people and you see the families, it's so emotional. I mean, you can use that in writing as a horror writer. Plus, it's very spooky, especially if you're out there at night.
Of course,
obviously, we mashing. In some of your novels, you use a very detailed forensic explanations. Do you have any experience with forensics, or you learn for your novels?
I learned from my novels. I got a lot of books on crime scene investigation. When I did Crota, I did a lot of research for Crota for doing the crime scenes. To me, that's always fascinated me. It's kind of funny because I did Crota and I researched it, but I also had a detective as a main character in my novel Breed. And I had to go back and research everything again because in those very few years, the crime scene investigation has improved so much. They have technology now that they didn't have back when I wrote Crota. So I had to research and relearn everything. Back when I first started out, they didn't have like the database for fingerprints. They didn't use DNA, which is common nowadays. So yeah, I did that. And I went to a civilian police academy here in Seminole County. So I did a lot of research, and I'm still researching whenever possible. Because, you know, if you do the research and you make it believable, then you can slip in a monster or two, and that makes the monster more believable.
Oh, of course.
Sure.
All your research is through books, learning through books.
Books, talking to people. I've had several relatives who were police officers.
Okay.
I know a lot of people who serve as law enforcement officers. A lot of questions and answers. I mean, I'm always I read very little fiction because I'm always reading nonfiction for research. I'm always trying to find new facts that I can use in stories. And researching folklore or crime scene investigation, police procedures, it's all part of it. The more I can put into a book to make the background believable, then the more people are going to believe the story.
Okay. In Darker Than Night, the main character, Michael, has just won the Bram Stoker Award, like you at that moment, like you. But he comments in that novel that he has not made him a millionaire, money is not flowing. That several people, I guess, other writers, I'm waiting to see him fail. What was your experience at the time? Was that your experience?
It was my experience. I'm still not rich. I'm kind of like Michael. I'm still waiting for the money. I mean, very few writers make a lot of money. I mean, Stephen King's an exception to the rule. Most writers, they're like actors. You got 10% who make big money and the rest are starving. So, yeah, and it's like I grew up in a small town, and I used the town I grew up in as a setting for Darker Than Night and Crota. And it's kind of, I've learned that people, you know, some people want to see you happy, but the people you grew up with don't necessarily want to see you succeed because they're still in that small town. They've never made it famous. They never made any money. So there's that bit of jealousy with that. And it's kind of funny because everybody thinks writers are rich and they're not. I mean, I don't have any personal friends that are, maybe one or two are got the money. The rest are all, you know, still working day jobs.
But do you feel at that moment that some people were waiting for you to fail in your second novel?
Yeah, I do.
Yes.
I mean, people are always like that. I do. I think so. I mean, they're you know, it's like anything. It's a very competitive genre. I mean, there's only so many awards giving. There's only so much success. I mean, you got people who love you and support you and want to see you succeed, but there's always going to be people in life who want to see you fail. So you got to watch out for those folks.
Okay. Okay. Emiliano.
Yeah. Grass Dancer. Grass Dancer, a short story written by you from in 1995, was nominated to a Nebula Award, best short story. What does it mean for you to have been nominated for a Nebula Award? And what did you feel to be recognized at the time?
It meant a lot to me. It still does to be nominated for Nebula. Same way as be nominated for Stoker. I grew up reading science fiction and horror. So to be allowed in the same room with some of these writers that I admire is amazing. To be nominated for an award in their presence, whether I won or not, they let me in the club for that one day. It means a lot to be recognized. Oh, we just lost video here. I hope you still hear me. It means a lot because, like I said, I was raised by writers like Ray Bradbury, Edgar Rice Burroughs, and Andre Norton. So to be able to get nominated for their most prestigious award was an honor. It really was a good feeling, and I still feel good about it. I didn't win, but just to be nominated was fantastic.
Who is influenced in your writing? I don't get it in reading your stories.
Big influences in my childhood. I grew up were Andre Norton, who wrote a lot of science fiction and fantasy, Ray Bradbury, Edgar Rice Burroughs, who wrote not just the Tarzan books, but he had John Carter of Mars, and the Inner Earth series. Of course, Lovecraft, H.P. Lovecraft was a big influence. Edgar Allan Poe, and there was a publication called Famous Monsters of Filmland. I grew up reading a lot about movie monsters. So I loved Frankenstein, Dracula, the Wolfman, the Mummy. So my first novel was a monster story because I'm still a monster kid at heart. So I wanted to pay back the kind of stories I loved growing up.
Okay. In Darker Than Night, Michael mentions that fictional horror cannot compete with the reality of 13-year-old girls forced into prostitution or drug dealers. How do you, as a horror writer, compete with that reality?
You can't. I mean, the evening news scares me. Watching what people do to other people is more horrific than anything I can write. That's why if you read my stories, I don't write about serial killers. I don't write about rapists. I don't write about people who torture others. I write monsters, vampires, werewolves. I write escape fiction. I want people to be able to turn out reality for a while. I mean, especially the world today. You turn on the news, you got wars, you got riots, you got unrest, you got people starving, you got children being blown up. And it's a terrible thing. I mean, I can't compete with that. That is more horrific than I can possibly imagine. I can't imagine a father who just lost their child in an act of war, or somebody who had their child kidnapped. I can't think of anything worse than that, or even a child raped. So I try to write the opposite end. I want people to read my stuff, but to know it's not real. I want them to get into the story, but I know that I want them to have that switch they can turn it off, and they're not disturbed. I mean, I want to give them that little bit of fear, but at the back of their head, they still know they can still say, it's not real. It's not real. Because I can't compete with what's going on in real life.
Okay. David Morrell tell us a couple months ago that when your son was dying, he was reading horror, specifically Stephen King, because it was a way to face the real horrors and into escapism.
Mm-hmm. Now I have, I think of my stories where I have people die, or if I have animals die. I get a lot of hate mail when I have animals die, but it does. I mean, Grass Dancer, there is death in Grass Dancer, but it shows you that, the spirit continues on. I think that's an important lesson for people. I mean, we all face it. I mean, I do kill people in my stories, but I'm not killing them via serial killer, rapists, soldiers, things like that. I mean, they still get that death and morality. My books are actually used in a jail, county jail, for youthful offenders, where they had a program for young people who were in their teens who had gone to jail for various crimes. And I was like, you use Crota in this program? Why? I said, I kill people. Crota eats people in the stories. They go, it's true. He said, but that interests the young people to read the stories. But you have the things in there like respect the earth, respect your mother and father, and things like that they can learn from. So they did an 8-week program. And at the end of 8 weeks, they rewarded these young offenders by allowing their families to come in with a home cooked meal and bring food into jail. And they had a little celebration. And I thought that was wonderful that these kids who had done something terrible and stuck in jail because they were there for stupidity, basically, were allowed to celebrate with their families. And they got something out of the stories. And I read their letters from them. So I do kill people because that is a learning thing, but I just don't do it with what you're going to see on the news.
Okay. Some of your novels are very gory, filled with gore, some not. For example, Darker Than Night is not a gory novel. Why you switch between making a very bloody novel and a novel almost without blood?
Because if I did the same thing over and over, I'd get bored. I wanted Crota to be a monster story, a monster romp, and I had a lot of fun with it. I wanted Darker Than Night to be more like a supernatural mystery. I wanted a completely different element with less killing and less gore. It's funny because Darker Than Night was inspired because I'm always reading for information I can use in stories. And I read an article about this lady in Spain who she had stains starting to form on her floor. And as the stains darkened, they looked like faces. And they tore up the floor several times. They couldn't figure it out. And finally, when they dug down deep enough, they realized her little house in Spain was built over a medieval cemetery where they had buried victims of the Inquisition. And they had pictures of these stains, and they were horrific. They definitely looked like faces. And I thought, well, what would I do if I was sitting there having breakfast, eating my cereal, and looked down and saw a face looking up at me from the floor? And that inspired Darker Than Night.
Arthur Machen was not on your influence.
What?
Arthur Machen.
No, that just the on Darker Than Night, it was mainly the faces that I had known about the legends of the Hopi, where the Hopi Indians believe we're on the 4th level, that 3 levels exist below us. And they have their what they call a kiva, which is their ceremonials room. And there's always a hole in the bottom of the room, which symbolizes the entrance to the other world below us. And even the other Apaches and other Southwestern tribes talk about levels below us. So it was easy for me to take the Indian lore and combine it with the pictures in the article about the lady in Spain and just kind of work my imagination into that. With the Kachina dolls turning around, that's strictly imagination. But it was funny because my mother had a large collection of Kachina dolls, and every time I went to her house, I'd turn them around backwards just to scare her.
Really scary. Emiliano?
Okay. Owl, you work with elements of indigenous spirituality, if I may say that. How do you navigate or balance the tension between fiction and respect for tradition?
Very carefully. I mean, a lot of the ceremonies and things like in Crota I'll describe, I don't go into elaborate details. I don't want anybody to take the book as a how-to book on how to do a pipe ceremony or a sweat lodge or things like that. So, and I have had elders look at the books and I ask their opinion, like, does this make you nervous, or does this upset you? So you got to show respect for how you treat it. But it's always a fine line because I'm sure that sooner or later there's going to be somebody I'm going to upset. but I try not to put anything that's secret in there or anything that's going to get me in trouble that I'm not allowed to reveal. If I do describe a ceremony or spirituality in the books, I always make sure it's appeared somewhere else. I mean, a lot of the Cherokee legends appeared in James Mooney, Sacred Formulas of the Cherokees, which was written in the 1800s. So they've been around for 100 years out in print and copied. So I always make sure to check that. So I'm not putting stuff out that I shouldn't put.
Yes, I got that.
Emiliano,
yes. Your stories partly draw on oral tradition, which is the earliest form of storytelling. When you create your stories, do you do so thinking that they could potentially become part of a collective imagination?
No, the stories kind of flow through me. I always tell people that, writers, are given the gift of writing. And the stories are kind of like form in my head. I'm the guy whose job it is to put it down on paper. I don't think about them selling. I don't think about if they're going to be in an anthology or in somebody's, collection. A lot of times I'm just trying to write the stories. Now, if I do get a request to write a story, then I'm thinking more about where it's going. But yeah, I don't put a lot of thought into where it, down the road. I just want to get the story told.
Yes. Simply.
You have written some children's book. How the transition from horror literature to children's book was?
It was fun. I mean, it was easy for me. Like I said, if I do the same thing, I get bored. I could do a novel a year, but I don't want to do that. I did the children's books because I had never written a children's books. I wanted to prove I could do it. So it goes back to my wife calling me stupid. I just want to prove myself in all the different aspects. I do short stories because I prove I could do it. Then I quit writing short stories for 20 years. I took a break from short stories. I didn't write any for a long time. And did novels, and then I got tired of novels and jumped into screenplays. And I've done comics. I like to keep doing something different. I mean, I'm not getting any younger. I want to have my finger in a little bit of everything. And I want to share stories with people who read comics, people who read short stories, and with the children's books. I mean, of course, with the children's books, I couldn't kill anybody or have any monsters. I had to be nice about it. When I wrote Evil Whispers, I wanted Evil Whispers to be a children's book. And my agent said, no, you cannot make this a children's book. I go, why? It's scary. Children like scary stuff too. He said, no, you can't make it a novel. So Evil Whispers started out as a children's book. And my agent's like, no, you can't do that.
And why do you stop writing children's book?
Because I did it. I proved I could do it. It's kind of funny, but once I prove I could do it, I want to try something different. It would be easy to keep doing the same thing, but I don't want it easy. I want the challenge. If I always, when people would ask me when I was younger, they go, can you do this? Can you write us this story? And I always say yes, even if I never wrote that kind of story before. Then I'd go home and cry and wonder why I said yes and be all nervous, but it always forced me to think deeper and use my imagination. Children's books, I did 2 of them. Then I wanted to do something else. I wanted to jump back to novels. I wanted to jump on the comic books. I wanted to do movie scripts. So I'm always looking for the next thing I could do that I've never done before.
Okay. Some of your works, some of your novels are about giant, evil, big bad monsters. People in Goodreads love that novels about big monsters because nobody writes about them anymore. Why horror writers are so shy about writing horror stories about monsters? Why is it so difficult to write about monsters?
I think they're kind of scared because in America, they're afraid of doing something that's been done before. Everybody wants to do psychological horror or that kind of horror. Monsters are fun. I mean, I want to write the book that you're going to read on an airplane or on a bus, and a couple hours later, you're done with it, but you've had fun with it. Monsters are, like I said, I grew up watching monster movies. It's part of my background. I love monsters. There's a reason why we still love Frankenstein and the Wolfman and the Creature from the Black Lagoon. Deep down, a lot of us love monsters, and there's some anthologies and stuff that have brought monsters back. There was a classic Monsters Unleashed, which was a wonderful anthology. And so, they're starting to come back a little bit where people realize it's okay to write monsters. I guess for a while, everybody's doing vampire stories, and people said, "Oh, don't do any more vampire stories." So people got scared.
Stop with the vampires, please.
I know. There's so many monsters, and there's so much folklore out there. I love, like in North America, I'm sure South America the same way. There's so much folklore and monster stories about things in the woods that all make great stories. I mean, in Florida, we got all this weird stuff lurking in the woods, and nobody's writing a lot of stories about it yet. With the Native American culture, there was a lot of monsters. And I grew up hearing these monster stories, and I was always anxious to write about something I loved hearing about.
Emiliano?
Yes. Owl, what do you think of the most recent revisions of Native American people in literature, in horror literature? I think of anthologies like Never Whistle at Night or Talk to Me, and of course, Stephen Graham Jones.
Well, I love it. Native Americans are finally getting the spotlight they deserve for a long time ago. There's a lot of great Native American writers and a lot of great literature. Never Whistle at Night's a fantastic anthology. It's been on the independent bestseller list for a long time now. Stephen Graham Jones knocking stuff out of the park. I'm glad to see it because every tribe has different stories. Every tribe has different culture they can pull upon. A lot of times for many years, they classified all Native Americans together, all their stories together because they didn't know any better. They don't realize there's so much diversity in the culture. So it's nice to see, diversity coming around in literature. I mean, we're not only just the Native Americans, but we're seeing Asian stories. I'm seeing stories out of Mexico, and this is wonderful. I don't want to read the same old stuff. I want to read stuff from other people's cultures, and the literature is a great way to learn about other people. It's through the stories they tell.
Yes.
Yes.
And what do you think it is happening in movies? I don't know, like Prey, for example.
They're starting to. I have several friends, fellow Native American authors, who are getting offers now. So people are starting to open more for the stereotype of what Native people are that's been part of Hollywood for a long time is starting to fall away. We're seeing television series now, we're seeing movies, and it's great because it tells, not only do you have some great classic horror, but it shows life from a different perspective than the normal that most people are used to. And I think that's fantastic because for years there's been ignorance of other cultures. But when you can read their stories and learn their culture, then you're not ignorant about it, and then you're not afraid of the people, because ignorance does breed fear. And now there's more understanding, and we're starting to see more diversity, and I love it.
Do you have a favorite horror movie, contemporary horror movie?
Oh yeah, the only movie that ever scared me was Jaws, about the shark. I mean,
Sure.
Jaws was the only movie when I first saw it. I saw it in the movie screen, and the opening part where the woman's out there swimming at night and the shark attacks her. And I got to thinking, what would I do? You're naked in the water late at night, and something just bit into you, and you realize you're part of the food chain, and there's no help around. I said, I can't imagine the terror that went through that person's mind if it was in real life. So Jaws is all-time favorite. Of course, I love Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I love The Exorcist. I love Halloween. I've got a very big DVD collection, so I watch horror all the time. And that's the nice thing about the horror genre. Even if you've seen the movie 200 times, you can still enjoy it.
Yeah.
My last question is why tobacco is so important in your writing, in your stories?
Well, tobacco was always considered sacred amongst Native Americans. When they prayed, they used tobacco. When they had a pipe, they would light the tobacco, and the smoke would be like carrying the prayers up to the Great Spirit. So it's always been a tradition. So I'm a very traditional person. So, yeah, it's tobacco, not like, natural tobacco, not like the stuff you get from stores, has all the chemicals in it. Don't smoke cigarettes or anything, but I do use tobacco for prayers. But it's part of the culture. It dates back thousands of years. I mean, people have been using tobacco for offerings and for gifts. So yeah, I do put it in there. And some people say, "Oh, you teaching kids how to smoke?" I'm like, no, I don't condone cigarettes or cigars or anything else. But pipe tobacco for ceremonies is a different story.
Okay, perfect. Emiliano?
Yes. Horror often engages with collective fears. Of course, we are living in difficult times. And my question is, what contemporary fears, if there are any, are you interested in exploring in your upcoming works?
Well, right now, I've been doing a lot of research for a new novel, which involves the opening days of the Civil War in America. So it takes place in the early, about 1865, that era. Because we're looking at America, there's so much tension in America, so much politics now, that we're looking at two groups of people constantly fighting between the Republicans and the Democrats. We forgot how to be Americans. We're no longer Americans. We're either you're a Republican or a Democrat. And the same situation happened before the Civil War before. So I'm reading about those days leading up to it because people had the same fear they seem to have today. And then, the fear of uncertainty, the fear of, what's going to happen to your job, what's going to happen to your family, your home. Those are all fears we can relate to because we all have them nowadays. How are you going to buy groceries? If something terrible happens, if war breaks out, what are you going to do? Because not only do you have the situation in America, but we're looking at Europe, we're looking at Ukraine and what's happening over there and in other countries. So there's a lot of fear, and it's kind of like history's repeating itself. So I'm studying history so I can put something into a story, maybe, help people as a warning kind of thing.
Well, so to close your chat, we will ask you what are you up now and what things are you working right now? Novels, writing for a movie. There is nobody waiting to translate a novel or from you to film, for example.
Well, right now I'm doing the Civil War stories, what I've been working on. As for to film, I've had the worst luck in the world for having my stuff turned into film. I've had a lot of offers, but every time something comes along, it doesn't happen. I had George Romero, the gentleman who did Night of the Living Dead. He wanted to turn two of my books into movies, and we were negotiating on one of them with a large movie studio. And while we were negotiating, the previous writer's strike in Hollywood happened, and we couldn't talk to anybody anymore, and it killed the deal. I had another book they wanted to film as a movie in Puerto Rico, and they were setting it up for starting the film, and then the hurricane hit Puerto Rico and messed the island up a couple years ago. So that killed that deal. So I've had like the worst luck. Maybe someday while I'm still alive, we'll see the movie deal. I hope. But so far, I've had like this cloud over me when it comes to movie deals. It just hasn't happened. So I'll keep writing novels and keep writing short stories and hopefully maybe do some more comics because I really love doing the comics, and we'll see what happens. I put it out there, but you can't think about if it'll be a movie because it'll drive you crazy just thinking about it, or it'll drive you crazy wanting the big money to come. If it comes, it comes. If not, I can die as a poor man. They'll still put me in the ground. It's okay.
Are you interested in being translated to Spanish?
Yeah, I would love to see. I would love to see the books translated into Spanish because there's so many Spanish-speaking people. I would love. Yeah. To me, it's all about entertaining people. If I can get the books out there and make somebody happy, or maybe scare them where they got to sleep with the lights on, it'd be wonderful. I would love to see I lived in Spain for several years. That's where I met my wife. So the thought of having my books in South America and Spain and with Spanish-speaking people would just be fantastic.
Yeah. Wow. And if you have to give an advice to a young horror writer, what would you say to him or her?
Write what scares them. I mean, if you're going to be a horror writer, write what scares you. If you're writing at 3 o'clock in the morning in front of your computer with the lights down low and you start looking over your shoulder because you start feeling scared, then it's good stuff. That's what you need to do. As long as it scares you, it'll scare other people.
Yeah, I agree.
Perfect.
Well,
Thanks all for your time. Thanks for answers. Gracias a Nancy por estar ahí para apoyarnos, to help us if you stumble in your poor English. Thank you very much for your time.
Está bien.
Thank you for having
Muchas
me.
gracias. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
thank you.
Thank
Thank you
you.
all.
Thank you.
So,
Thank you. Have a great
Bye.
day. Bye now. Adios.
adiós.